A beautiful place most call paradise on earth, a town rich with Hawaiian history, has been tragically reduced to ashes.
Hello, people of Maui.
The search for victims now includes both the burnt-out ruins and the sea where many tried to escape.
The devastation is overwhelming.
It is the hottest summer on record, and Hawaii is burning.
In the heart of the Pacific, where the tranquil beauty of nature converges with the relentless march of progress, a tale of fire and fury unfolded. As fires recently scorched Lahaina, the former capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii, the flames illuminated various government responses that echo past power dynamics: who gets resources, who gets land, and who gets neither.
Our houses disintegrated like to nothing. What we had and what we owned is all gone.
After arriving in Lahaina, two things were very clear. The town was gone, and the locals believed that they had been, and were currently being, mistreated, lied to, and stolen from. Many of the locals saw the government-approved death count of 115 casualties as a cruel and disrespectful lie.
I think it's in 1,000, not hundreds. And this newscast is still watching the news, 114. Stalked on that number for several days? No, there's no way. There's more than that. I say between 1,000 to 2. It could be plus. We don't know because we didn't have the warning.
I think it's in the thousands. They brought in like 500 body bags. The guys in the water was at least 200-300 people in the water. Come on, do the math. I mean, there's piles and piles of bodies are laying all around. That's more than 100. Come on, man.
So you think they're lying about it?
Yes. They're not going to tell that there's like 3,000 bodies.
Locals in Lahaina condemned the government's handling of the disaster, or lack thereof, arguing that every step of the way, the government, meaning the county of Maui and the federal government of the United States, made things worse.
To today, I haven't had any money come in. I haven't had anybody call me back. I didn't have anything. I have no idea. I lost my house. I lost my car. I lost my animals. I mean, come on, man. We're not getting anything. Till today, I still didn't get my meds. I cannot get my meds yet. My medicine was all burnt in my house. My rent money was all burnt in my house. I have no money anymore because everything was burnt. FEMA took away all the stuff that the local people was giving out on the side of the road and said, no, okay, it's we're gonna take over. Yeah, they took over. These guys went down to Lahaina with a lowboy with all the water and all this stuff, and they hoarded all of that stuff. They took it away from everybody. Why? The locals was doing a killer job. They opened up, spots here, there. Our small county was doing the same thing. They was giving out meds. They was doing all this stuff. Everybody was trying. The local people, everybody was just all working together. And then FEMA and all these guys come in and they kiboshed. And then they wonder why nobody believes in Red Cross and FEMA and all these guys.
The people of Lahaina explain how during the blaze, Maui's government seemed like they were doing everything they could to ensure more people perished, not less. The fire hydrants ran dry. The Maui Emergency Siren and Alert System, one of the largest and most advanced in the world, was purposely not used, and the police force blocked the roads out of Lahaina. The only ones to escape the fires and survive either disobeyed law enforcement or jumped into the ocean.
I drove as fast as I could. I broke all the possible traffic rules that you can think of. I do not know why I didn't have any warnings. The authorities claim that the siren it's only for tsunamis, but there's so many families that died because they were sleeping. They didn't know. A siren would have at least tell them, hey, something's happening. No text messages, nothing, absolutely nothing. And the next day I came back to get my animals, and I saw all the vehicles that I was like standing in traffic to escape town. They were still in there, all burned down. And it was only locals pulling bodies out of the water and pulling people out of the water because we had no help.
We found ourselves trapped on Front Street with fires coming at us. We had to make a decision to jump in the water And at that time we did when the flames was too hot to stay in the car. And we decided to go into the ocean. And at that point I met that family that had 5 kids, and I was given the 2-year-old to hold, and I had him for a number of hours. It was like an explosion going off everywhere, like a fire goddess, just like throwing fireballs all over the place.
Our close friends had died in the fire. Bodies was just laid on the side of the road. I mean, they just left it there. I mean, our gas stations blew up like off the face of like Lahaina. You know, I mean, things just, our houses disintegrated like to nothing. What we had and what we owned is all gone. We had no warning, no sirens, no police going around and telling anybody to evacuate, nothing. People were burning to death in their houses. Little kids died from smoke inhalations in their houses because they thought they were safe at home. The parents thought that the kids were safe at home. That is so sad. Why? For nothing. We should have been warned. I blame the government and I blame our county because that's their job. They test these things every month, and they cannot blame the electricity for the thing not going off because the wires was live. And the people from Maui Electric told us they could not shut the electricity off. The wires was live. So
it would have worked?
Yes. Why wasn't anybody warned? The guy said he made the decision not to do it because he thought that by making the siren that everybody was going to the mountain. Nobody's that fucking dumb. We're not that stupid. We're not going to run to the fire.
The Biden administration's handling of the disaster was seen as negligent and insensitive. When initially asked about the fires, Biden told a reporter that he had, quote, no comment. And days later, he finally freed up enough federal funds to send each Lahaina household $700. Locals compared the funds they were being sent, but had still not received, with the billions that the administration is expeditiously sending to Ukraine.
You guys wanted us, Hawaiian people, to be part of the state. It happened. Now what are we? Nothing. When it comes to a situation like this, where are we? In the back burner. Sending money elsewhere, billions versus 700 per person, and that's not our country. That is really insane. That really makes me very angry, not only for me, and I'm sure for everyone in the USA. Why can't that $150 billion come to the people in need? Hawaii is USA, what they wanted, and they got it. Now help us.
I think Joe Biden should take his $700 and get back on the fucking plane and go home. That's what I think. Because $700 compared to all the millions he's giving to Ukraine, why? Why are we giving them billions of dollars and we're giving them more money? Why? We need it. That's why we don't understand why. We're citizens and we cannot get money. But if they're not citizens, they get gazillions of dollars from the USA. Why should we be a state? Because we don't get nothing out of them. Where's our government?
Is this how, like, your community, other Hawaiians you know, locals, indigenous people, is that how they feel, pretty much how you feel?
Everybody feels that way. Come on. That's why the local people stick together and we help our own people because we know the outside people are not going to do it.
They give all this money to Ukraine, but then look, Hawaii is in flames, and we have no water. I like to drink tap water. I don't really have money to buy water all the time, so I like to use a hose or go to the public restroom and drink some of the water out of my hand. I don't know if I can do that. I hope I don't get sick.
With Lahaina homes turned to dust, locals fear that the same mainland developers and billionaires that have been eyeing their oceanfront community for decades will finally get their way and take advantage of the crisis.
Things will never be the same. Never. a lot of realtor agency trying to offer them money to buy their property. And that's very disappointing. They want to offer them very little money and sell it for millions. You know, it is unfair for us local here in Hawaii to deal with. We're grieving. We're here struggling. All they think is money. Ding, 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 ding. Forget about the local, how they feel, what they live, how they're going to live. That's up to them. But money is in play on this. But you know what? Local people will not give up. They may think we're dumb, we're stupid. But guess what? We may act stupid or dumb. We have a brain. And watch out. Watch out. Mainland people. I'm sorry if you are from there. I'm sorry. It's sad. Hawaii people are aloha people. They're family orientated. They help one another. They open their hearts to other people. All these people that is from the mainland, we try to keep it open-hearted. But this is the thanks we get when something happened, a disaster happened. Oh, let's get their money. Let's buy their land. Let's offer them very cheap. 100,000. But we'll resell for $1 million or maybe $1 billion because it's seated right at that border of ocean front.
There's a lot of fears that people have about losing their lands, losing their family, their homes. Even if their home didn't burn, they're also afraid that this area will be rebuilt in the most, corporate mini mall type fashion you can think of, a big, massive development style that doesn't serve the needs of the locals at all. And there's a lot of concern around that.
Oh boy, it's gonna be a mess. It's never gonna be Lahaina again, never. It's not gonna be the old Lahaina. And that's sad, because the old Lahaina was really nice, beautiful, and heartwarming, and Lahaina ain't coming back. I think people that lost their houses ain't gonna build another house. So the land is going up for sale, and people from the mainland are going to buy it, and they're going to rebuild. Because they have plenty of money, and they're going to rebuild, and it's going to be a freaking all buildings. Of course, money talks and bullshit walks, Too much cement, man. To me, I don't vote. I don't vote because, to me, they're all a bunch of, because they say they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do this. That's why we're at where we're at right now, because they don't do what they're going to say.
This Maui resident has resided in Lahaina since 2009, when he married his wife, a native Hawaiian. He explained how he believed industry and the U.S. military are to blame for the fires.
Lahaina used to be called the Venice of the Pacific. It was so wet and there were so many streams flowing through it that kept the grounds moist, kept the plants juicy, and all of that's dried out because that water has been redirected to golf courses and resorts. At an even larger scale, the nearby island that you can see right over there used to be verdant and lush and green. And that created a pocket between Maui and the next island over that would trap moist air, keep the western end of Maui much wetter and more humid. From the 30s through the 80s, the US Navy bombed the surface off of that island, so it's a barren rock now and it doesn't retain anything. And the moist air just keeps right on cruising. So that helped dry this area out. So you've got military involvement, with the long-term impact of plantation farming that just merged straight into the resorts and the golf courses and stuff. There used to be a giant pond in the middle of Lahaina that's been drained and filled over. That was the original seat of the king. But all of, that whole fish pond was drained and filled over. As far as most of the locals, like the native locals are concerned, this is basically a war crime. After a couple of hundred years of being either a colonial darling or a state when it's convenient, but never really to the benefit of the natives. It was always to the benefit of offshore interests.
U.S. military personnel are currently occupying all the entrances into the burnt-down community and not allowing residents to visit their own homes. I was only able to get in by climbing a fence and barricade out of view of guards. Locals have been told by government authorities that these troops are Hawaiian, but the community doesn't entirely believe that. They think the US government is specifically sending Asian, dark-skinned troops to Lahaina to keep the peace. Because if these troops were Caucasian or white, locals would get the sense that they're under occupation or siege.
You know, we have a lot of Hawaiian people goes in the military. They're stationed elsewhere, mainland. But to control the peace in here, they try to get all the Hawaiian people, local skin, brown skin, look Hawaiian, to come and barricade or do their watch, so that way it will keep peace with the local people. Right now, the local people are very angry what's going on, especially with white people right now. If they see any white people, any mainland people, military, you think they're gonna stand there and say, "Hi, brother"? They're gonna go and wanna start a war. So I think the government did this to protect, to have peace, but yet fool the local people that they are military from Hawaii. I heard from my uncle's mouth, who is from Washington, said they're sending a lot of troops, military troops, to Hawaii.
So they're looking for troops from the mainland that look Hawaiian.
Yes, that's my guess. Because you look everywhere you go, they all look like they're local. Local. I had never seen not one colored or white skin. A lot of local.
Cars and makeshift aid tents flew the upside-down Hawaiian flag, a symbol of a nation, not a state, in distress, commonly used by the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. Something that stood out while walking around Lahaina was the fact that there were locals sleeping on the street and sleeping on the beach, and the government was there, in Lahaina, but handling something else. The government was busy installing brand new blackout fencing miles around the entire community. The government says these fences are being erected in order to respect those lost in the fire, but seeing how photos of the ruins circulating online fueled criticism of the government and even questions about the true nature of the fire, these fences were a form of censorship, a type of aesthetic and visual censorship to prevent further public outrage and criticism of the government. On August 22nd, Maui County Council held a public meeting. Perhaps the most interesting speaker was this Maui elementary school teacher and activist. He pointed out how the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, passed an emergency declaration 3 weeks prior to the fires that streamlines development, suspends sunshine law, and rescinds collective bargaining for certain types of workers. A piece of legislation that corporate development behemoths would pay a fortune for.
I am testifying on my concerns of the governor's emergency proclamation that happened 3 weeks prior to the fire, and how it suspended 7 state statutes, of which exonerated everything that you guys are in charge of. To my knowledge, this was the first emergency proclamation in the country that didn't have a preceding incident. Normally it's like a hurricane, boom, we got an emergency proclamation. But this was just, from my knowledge, was just to streamline development on Maui, and it is allocated all decision-making power to one person, the housing officer of the governor, Nani Medeiros, who's unelected.
Some locals in Lahaina believe there was something more sinister behind the fires, perhaps a deliberate plot. And while I couldn't find any evidence of such a plan, the results of the disaster play perfectly into the hands of wealthy developers who've long had their sights set on Lahaina.
They already had stuff in the planning and everything passed, you know, their plans was all passed already. And that's why everybody thinks that they created this fire, they did this, because it's kind of suspicious that our whole town had burned. How does a whole town burn? And like in where I live, you know, it started from one end of the street and it wiped out our whole street. How does that happen? And then certain places, it burned like 5 houses, and then it went around that one next house, and then it goes a little bit more, and then it goes around another house. How does it do that? Is that a miracle? We don't understand that. It like the fire picked and choose which house to burn, which house not to burn. I never seen fire do that before. The thing is we all lived it. Where were you?
Normally, during a natural disaster like this, residents are skeptical of government promises of safe environmental factors. For some people in Lahaina, it's the other way around. They've crowdfunded and hired an air quality expert because they're afraid the government will tell them that the air is unsafe when it's actually safe, in order to get them off the land for development companies and real estate interests.
We have some family members, I'm not going to mention any names.
No, you don't have to, of course.
Yeah, they're doing their own air testing in Lahaina. We cannot trust the government. They can say one thing but can be another, because it can drive all these Lahaina people out and try to sell their property. I'm thinking this is another way for have these people to buy their land. So that is why our family member is taking it in his own hands to make sure everywhere is safe and to let the local people know don't fall for any scams.
Also at the council meeting, this woman gave an impromptu testimony effectively summarizing what most locals are feeling on the island, that they're being treated unfairly by the government, and that there's a conspiracy to get indigenous people off the land.
I am a forced American. I'm not a proud American. I am forced to be American in Hawaii. You're telling us to fill out this paperwork so that you can give us the least amount of money. All I've had since day one is $700. 4 out of 5 of us lost our homes. It was burned to the ground. We are only being told, stand in this line, sign here. What are we signing? Who is it benefiting, us or America? That's what I want to know. And I want to know when we get to go back to our home in Wainea. Maybe it's gone. We need to go back there. Are you guys going to just scrape it all away and say disaster zone? And America's going to get what they want, their satellite city? Because this was planned years ago. It's now happening. And all the poor people, the homeless, the hardworking people of the hotels, the kapuna, we lost everything. We couldn't even have our pastor come in and ask us if we need prayer in the very beginning, but Oprah could come in. Who is she? Who is she? We also don't need people like Kaina Shiki telling tourists don't come to Maui. Because some of us, thousands of us, work in the hotel industry. They pay our mortgage. They give us our medical. And the medical, besides the county, is pretty good for somebody old like me. So don't go tell tourists, don't come Maui, because you're not speaking for us, the working people. You're speaking for yourself. Tourists come, we love you. We have aloha, because you will be helping us, the lower people, the grains of sand of Maui is what we are. We're not the ones living up in Laniapoku. Not one of those houses burned. Puamana is still there. Lahaina Shores is still there. Everything beyond the Civic Center is there, but the homes where we were working, where we were scraping, where we had less than $1,000 a month to pay for our basic needs of gas and food. We busted our ass, and this is what we get? Nobody called us. Our phones didn't work from 5 in the morning. The fire was not 10 o'clock when I went to work. The fire was still there. There was no water. Tell me if that's coincidence. No water, no warning, and everybody talking about the satellite city before the fire. Lahaina gonna be the first satellite city. Well, hey, Jeff Bezos, you got what you wanted. Oprah, you got what you wanted. And the guy who owns the nut, you got what you wanted. Because all we got so far was $700, and we don't know who to call or anything.
May God bless all those we've lost. May God find those who we haven't determined yet. And may God bless you all. May God protect our troops.